Today, along the Hudson River, along the Mohawk or the Buffalo, along Mudna Creek or the Arthur Kill, one drop can tell the story. Contaminated by detergents, nitrates from fertilizers, fibers and fats from factory wastes, amoeba, bacilla, and viruses from community sewers. Things alien and dangerous are polluting the waters of our state.
Little drops of water, da 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 da
So commonplace is water, a part of the natural scheme of things on earth. It has always been available to slake men's thirst, to wash his face, to carry off his wastes, to use in his factories. So it will always be. That we know today is a child's fairy tale. And in the executive chamber, the governor's office in this state, we must deal in realities. In the next half hour, you will hear about the realities of New York's water situation. Believe it or not, we are favored among states as far as an ample supply of water goes. New York borders on the two of the Great Lakes. We have the Niagara River, the Mohawk, the St. Lawrence, Allegheny, Delaware, Susquehanna, and the Hudson Rivers. We have many creeks and ponds and several hundred miles of coastline. Our average annual rainfall is supposed to be 40 inches. But the facts are that in the past 3 years, the Mohawk Valley has received 16 inches under normal. The Eastern Plateau and Atlantic coastline areas of our state are missing 17 inches of rain. In the Hudson Valley, 30 inches of rain, 2.5 feet of solid water that it should have fallen on every square inch of surface did not fall. The word for this situation is drought or drought. However you pronounce it, it is one of those old-fashioned words like plague and famine that can bring a society up short. 1 month ago, I asked for an emergency survey of the drought. The report is now at hand. It amplifies and collects in detail what is already bitter personal experience to many New Yorkers. Wells and reservoirs have run dry. Farmers haven't been able to grow hay or water their livestock. Factories have cut back on production for lack of water. There's been fires burning above ground and onion bogs burning underground. The Great Lakes are down more than 2 feet, hampering power generators, and ships have been running aground on the shoals. Toward the end of November, New York Civil Defense Headquarters in Albany had become a nerve center of the drought.
This is the water situation as it now exists in New York State by county. Albany County are using our equipment right now. They have another shortage probably pending. These counties here are all okay. Shenango's using our equipment in one location, as is Clinton and Columbia County. Cortland County has a water shortage pending. Delaware is pumping in 2 places with our equipment, as is Dutchess in 1 place.
This headquarters has sent out 80 telegrams to all of its local jurisdictions to find out what the current situation is with regard to water emergency. These are the last 2 of 80 replies. Let me read you an excerpt from one. The city of Gloversville declared a state of emergency on November 12, 64, because of the water shortage. Since the declaration, they have received 6,500 feet of 8-inch pipe, 2,500 feet of 6-inch pipe, and 1 800-gallon per minute pump from the New York State Civil Defense stockpile. 1 800-gallon per minute pump and 1,000 feet of 8-inch pipe has been transferred from Johnstown to Gloversville.
Coming down here, Fulton is pumping in 2 places with our equipment, Green in 3 places. Coming down here into the farmlands, Herkimer and Lewis and Madison have water shortages for their livestock.
My name is Lloyd Zimmerman. I happen to live on a farm outside the town of Cooksaki, which is about 20 miles south of Albany. In this area, the water situation is very bad. In town, people have been forced to buy water by the gallon. The farmers in the surrounding area are forced to buy water for their livestock by the truckload. We have been blessed by nature with an abundant spring on our farm, which we have opened up to the community. On any given day, as many as 25 cars can be seen coming in to get water for drinking and for washing dishes. On weekends, this goes up to about 50 cars. It is a very bad situation in this area.
Down to Seneca, they have a livestock water shortage pending.
This is pipe that the State Civil Defense Commission stockpiles and is loaning to the communities suffering water emergencies. At the present time, the supply is exhausted. These are the pumps the State Commission stockpiles and loans to the local communities suffering emergencies. We have approximately 1 or 2 pumps left for any future emergency. Gloversville, for example, is utilizing approximately 3 miles of this pipe to connect their emergency supplies from lake to lake to their reservoir.
This was the situation at the Port Storage Reservoir, serving Gloversville just after Thanksgiving. Capacity, 80 million gallons. Contents, a few thousand gallons. In all, the city's reservoirs had been down as low as a 9-day supply. Thus, the race against time to lay pipe and pump from nearby Mountain Lake down to the reservoir. Then another race before Mountain Lake was exhausted to Edward Lake. And now plans to draw water from Woodworth Lake to Edwards Lake, plans that call for still more pipe and still more pumps. Down below the watershed, the Drought walks the streets of town. The jokes about it have a bitter edge. There is a sign in the laundromat window, and posters everywhere, and stories in the Leader Herald.
We have 10 tanneries here in Gloversville. All use a great amount of water in the processing of hides and skins, as you can see by the amount of water being used by this tanning drum in normal operation. This is a side of cow, half a cow hide. To process 1 whole cow hide, we use 500 gallons of water. In this water emergency, we have been asked to conserve on water 20% to 35%. This we have done, but we have also closed down 1 day a week, all the tanneries in this city, that is. Normally, there would be 6 men working in this tanning room when we are busy. A total of 50 men in this tannery. Today, we are closed. Production has fallen behind. This puts us in a bad position with our customers. But still worse, 50 of our employees are home. 50 of our employees will not receive a day's pay today.
At the high school, absolutely no one takes a shower now, except the basketball team and the wrestling team. At the Nathan Littauer Hospital, a rule that nurses can take a bath in no more than 2.5 inches of water, plus other conservation measures, has been saving up to 10,000 gallons a day. At the firehouse, Chief Maxson has worked out a plan for using relays of tank trucks to bring water from outlying ponds.
The system has been working fine, but we have had 14 unexplained fires in a little more than 2 months. In our opinion, this is the work of Watermore arsonists.
At the scene of the fires, we have found kerosene, gasoline, and paint thinner. We've got good leads on this, but arson is one of the hardest crimes to prove.
We had a fire on October the 23rd, and we used 2 million gallons of water. That is one whole day's supply for our town.
At a time of drought, for many villages, towns, and cities across the state, water becomes a very precious thing. In accord with this drought report, I'm taking the following immediate actions to combat existing and future effects of the drought. 1, I'm instructing our State Director of Civil Defense to inform the United States Office of Emergency Planning as to our projected needs so that there will be a reserve store of federal emergency equipment maintained in New York State to supplement our own nearly exhausted supplies. 2, we have $100,000 on hand for emergency purposes due to economies in state government. The federal government will match this with an equal amount. That gives us $200,000 for immediate purchase of pipe, pumps, chlorinators, and other devices that can move and purify water. 3, our Civil Defense Department will establish a drought information service so that in the future, any stricken community will know just exactly what emergency supply and conservation measures other communities in the same predicament have used successfully. The long-range approach to water supply and use is another matter, a matter that has been receiving constant attention in Albany. In 1962, we created our Water Resources Commission that brings the chairman of the various state departments together to supervise water planning programs. Here's one plan, for example, that involves 4 counties in the Erie-Niagara area. There's a long-range study going on in the West Oswego Basin. In Ithaca, a study of the Cayuga Lake's water problems is just getting underway. Some of our water management problems put New York in partnership with other states, involving the Ohio River, the Genesee River Basin, the Susquehanna River Basin, and another involving the Delaware River. With regard to Lake Champlain, we work with Vermont and Canada. In cooperation with the U.S. Department of Agriculture, 28 small watershed projects are underway. Since last September 1st, under the state's new program for financing regional water studies, 5 applications have been approved in Chemung County, in Cattaraugus County, a big project in Lower St. Lawrence Valley, including the city of Ogdensburg, another in Orange County, and another in Victor in Ontario County. And then from one agency of the state, which normally has nothing to do with water, a project is ready that may provide an answer to the serious water situation on Long Island.
This is Long Island Sound. It is composed of salt water. Through a process known as desalination, this water can be made into fresh water that is potable.
In 1962, New York became the first state to organize its own agency concerned with the use of nuclear energy. Today, our atomic authority has plans ready for the world's first nuclear-powered converter that will turn seawater into drinking water.
Now, the plant actually would be built in the cliff areas such as the one behind me and would have pipes leading out into the sea for several thousand feet. One would be an intake for the seawater, would run through the plant, and the other would be an outlet for the brine that would be the residue of the desalination operation here in the plant. The plant we intend to build will produce 1 million gallons of fresh water a day. That is just about the average daily requirement right now of the town of Riverhead. The plant will also produce 2,500 kilowatts of electricity, which would be put on the grid of the Long Island Lighting Company in this area.
Water and power from the atom, a need all over the world, here in New York, for the world to see. The Federal Atomic Energy Commission will help finance this project, but it will still take about $3 million of New York money to get construction underway. In time, most of this money will be returned to the state treasury from commercial use of projects started by the Atomic Authority. In January, I will ask the legislature to appropriate money for the atomic desalination plant without delay. Besides focusing our attention on problems of water supply in New York, the drought of 1964 should be handwriting on the wall to us, undeniable handwriting on the wall that warns us to stop polluting our lakes and rivers, to stop treating our waterways as if they were open sewers. No matter how hard the drought hits people living in many places like Gloversville, they may not be able to touch the water that runs by their very doorsteps. Cayudetta Creek, for example, is so polluted with sewage and with grease from tanneries, it would foul the pumps of a fire engine. Flowing south, the Cayudetta picks up all of Johnstown's sewage, and then some more from Fonda, before joining the Mohawk, which is already a sick river. And again, the Mohawk is dealt a staggering blow by Amsterdam from raw sewage, insoluble detergents, and textile dyes. Schenectady is a hero to the Mohawk, with a modern sewage treatment plant. Primary settling tanks remove the sludge. Chlorination kills many dangerous living things in the outflow. But Cohoes and Troy undo the good work of Schenectady. And the Pool of Albany is sometimes like an open cesspool. For 10 miles south of Albany, there are no fish, but sludge worms, leeches, rat-tail maggots, and larvae of flies, and et cetera, et cetera. The Hudson runs down to the sea. Consider the waters of our state. The Niagara, below Rainbow Bridge, chemical pollution. The Buffalo River, Newtown Creek, south of the Kosciuszko Bridge in Brooklyn, and on the eastern end of Long Island.
We've lived here nearly 10 years now. When we came in, our water was just fine. We used shallow wells. All the people in the vicinity do. Since more people have moved in, the water has become increasingly worse. I'll show you. See, whenever you run water, there's a definite suds on the top of it. These people next door moved in the summertime, so they've only been here a few months. And when they came with their 3 children, I was talking to the mother and found that her children were drinking soda pop constantly because they found the water so distasteful. Then farther down the block, I have some very good friends with whom I've given up drinking coffee because the water makes the coffee so terrible, I just won't drink it. One day in the summer, a plumber friend of ours came in to do some work for our friends. After he had worked for a while, he said to me, "Eleanor, don't ever use this water. It's filthy, almost to the point of being poisonous." I don't know what is to happen with the water situation, but definitely something has to be done.
Indeed, Mrs. Tuttle, something must be done. pollution control is in the hands of our state health department. Our Commissioner of Health is Dr. Hollis S. Ingraham. I thought you might like to hear firsthand Dr. Ingraham's summary of water pollution in New York. Doctor?
Governor, as you just pointed out, water pollution in our state comes mainly from two sources, community sewage and industrial waste. We're making some headway with the problem of industrial waste, but by far the greatest cause of water pollution and the greatest problem for our state is community sewage, that is, the waste from our homes and offices and streets that is dumped into our lakes and rivers. On the whole, New York's industries have cooperated with the Department of Health in coping with their pollution. Some companies have even found it good business to develop waste treatment equipment. They find they can recover from their wastes byproducts which have market value. The Oneida Company and Eastman Kodak both extract silver from their wastewater. Milk companies now extract whey, which can be sold from their wastes. I don't mean to imply that there are not problems with industrial waste. The paper mills continue to dump fibers into our water courses. Textile mills find it difficult to remove colored dyes from water, and a strong chromium compound flows into our streams from the wastes of tanneries. Out on Long Island, duck farms pose a very special problem for pollution control.
I didn't think I'd see ducks on my own television program.
I've been in this business for the last over 40 years, raising 300, 400, 500 to 600,000 ducks per year for myself, and we produce about 7 million ducks out here in Suffolk County. But we have our problems today. We had the Board of Health come in, and the Water Resources Commission from Albany. They come down here, and they told us that now we've got to put in underwater lagoons, filter all this water coming through. So we went ahead, the expense of $30,000, and put that in. And after less than a year, they said that wasn't satisfactory. We've got to do something else. Then they suggested that we should build upland lagoons, which, well, I spend here on this farm another little over $20,000, and all the water come from this farm goes through these lagoons, settle in beds. We settle out all the solids and everything, and then the water goes out to the bay into public waters. But up to the present time, they tell us that those are becoming so they're not altogether satisfactory. And we may have to chlorinate, and I know that we cannot afford to do it. The state now, they have our back against the wall, and if we don't get some help, or they tell us what we should do, we'll all be out of business. So I don't know. I hope they make up their mind what we should do, period. That's about all I can say. We'll be out of business.
The answer to Mr. Selleck, Governor, is that we still do not have easy answers to some water pollution problems. We have been doing research. We'll have to do more research. But wastes from duck farms breed mosquitoes. These wastes have also damaged the shellfishing industry because oysters do not grow to size in polluted water. Duck wastes have harmed recreational values of the waterfront and depressed residential development. If pure water is important, wastes must be treated. If wastes are properly treated, it may be more than some industries can afford. But as I said before, Governor, the really big water pollution problem is not industrial, but domestic sewage. Too many of our villages, towns, and even cities have no modern plants for treatment of sewage. Some have outmoded plants, far out of date and hopelessly inadequate. Others have antiquated sewers that do not even bring waste to one point where they can be treated. Now, as you know, adequate treatment plants are expensive. For a town of, say, 50,000, a treatment plant alone can cost $1.5 to $2 million, and costs are going up every year. On top of that, these plants must be run by trained, well-paid people, an added expense for local governments. As for the cities with antiquated sewer systems, They will have to rip up their streets and put in interceptor sewers to collect the waste and bring them to treatment plants. This also can be very expensive. However, even if local officials and townspeople are willing to stop pollution, in many cases they simply are not able to afford it. Also, I'm afraid that some people do not put sewage treatment high on their list of needs. After all, dumping raw sewage ruins water more for the fellow downstream than it does for them. In summary, the problem is cost. And not only cost. There's a question of values involved. A question of how important people believe abatement of water pollution to be. In my view, sir, as Commissioner of Health, there is nothing more important for New York at this time.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Like the fat and lean years of the Bible, drought appears to come and go in cycles. And we have no reason not to believe that this one, too, shall pass. But pollution of our water, that must be blamed on man, not nature. Surely everybody has a stake, farmers, industries, fishermen, communities, a child walking by the river. All want water, pure. It has become abundantly clear that despite our strict laws, our communities are not able to stop polluting the waters they use. As governor, I think there is no choice but to declare the problem of water pollution top priority. The state must lend a helping hand to industries that cannot afford to render their waste harmless, and especially to villages, towns, and cities that by themselves cannot afford a modern treatment plant or even a proper sewer system. Between now and Christmas, the details of my all-out program for pure water will be announced. I cannot urge you too strongly, citizens and legislators, that we do not delay such an intensive effort. If we start now, at best it will take 6 or 7 years to restore our lakes, rivers, and beaches. But even the promise of pure water is, I think, a magnificent present for the people of New York to give to their children in this holiday season of 1964.